This recipe is one of my absolute favorite sandwich recipes in the world. This is a torta ahogada. A torta is a Mexican type of sandwich, and a torta ahogada is a drowned sandwich. But let me tell you, it's not drowned in anything mild. This is drowned in a chili sauce that goes from quarter heat, half heat, 3/4 heat, and muerte. And let me tell you, if a courtier loves spicy food and they're calling their sauce muerte, that is the freaking spiciest thing you've probably ever eaten. But it is absolutely delicious. Myself, I can go about 3/4 heat on this and be pretty comfortable. Muerte pushes it, but if you put a muerte torta ahogada in front of me, I'm still gonna eat it. So we're gonna get started. This is actually a cool sandwich because it's spicy 2 ways. We're gonna make that very spicy 3/4 hot sauce that I told you about, and we're also gonna make some chipotle black beans. Now, chipotle is a smoked dried jalapeno, but you might notice these are looking pretty red and wet here. That's because those are chipotles in adobo. And adobo is just this really nice marinade with a lot of aromatic spices to it and a lot of vinegar. And what happens is the dried smoked chipotles get soaked in that vinegar, and they suck up all that vinegar and all those aromatic spices, and they soften up. But then that vinegar also pulls out really nice smoky heat into it. And so it's cool because not only can you use the chipotles, but you can actually just use the adobo sauce too on something. But I like to use the whole chipotle. And here I've got 2 chipotles in adobo. So what I'm gonna do is turn my pan up to a medium heat just so I can get these beans warmed up. And all I've got here is a can of refried black beans, which are not actually refried despite the name. They're really just a bunch of mashed black beans in a can. So I'm just gonna spoon this into my pan, and I spread it out kind of pretty thin across the pan, because the thinner you can get, the thinner those black beans are going to warm up. So I start those beans warming up, and then what I do is I just take my chipotles and I just dice those guys up. Put that right on top of those beans. And then just give those a stir to incorporate them. And just let them hang out while you make the sauce, which only takes a couple of minutes. So to make the sauce, like I told you, this is a very, very hot sauce. It's pretty much primarily made with chilies arbol. These are one of the workhorse hot chilies of the Mexican kitchen. You can see I've got a lot of them here. If I was making muerte sauce, the sauce would just be chilies arbol and vinegar and a few other spices, and that's it. But to tone it down a little bit, we're gonna add some fire roasted tomatoes to it. But I'm still using all these chilies. I've got about 20 to 25 chilies arbol here, whole, seeds, stems, everything, right into my blender. Then what I'm gonna add is 3 cloves of garlic. I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of salt there, a teaspoon of dried oregano, and about a teaspoon of ground cumin. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna start out and grind this up into kind of a garlic chili powder, because if you do it that way without the vinegar, the chilies actually have a better chance of grinding up. If you just do it with the vinegar, then sometimes the chilies don't grind up quite as bit and they just float around in the vinegar. So I'm gonna turn this into a powder. So you can see what I did there was I started out at kind of a medium speed, and then I slowly cranked it up as the chili started to grind. And the reason I do that is if you just set it up to high right away, well, the chilies are gonna fly to the top and they're not really gonna grind up. It's gonna look pretty cool and you're gonna laugh, but you're not actually gonna get a chili powder. And speaking of chili powder, if you wanna keep this just like it is, you can use this on tacos, burritos, all sorts of stuff. Just a nice little sprinkle to heat everything up. But like I said, we're gonna make that 3/4 sauce. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take about half a cup of white vinegar here. Now my favorite vinegar to use in this is a white balsamic vinegar because it's got a really nice sweetness to it. The only place I can find white balsamic right now is at Trader Joe's. And if I don't have that available to me, it's not a huge deal. I'll just use a regular white vinegar. So I've got some white vinegar in there, and then what I'm gonna do is add in about a cup of these crushed fire roasted tomatoes. Not only is that going to add a depth of flavor to the sauce, it's also going to mellow it out a little bit. If you want to go something like a half heat, then you're going to add in about a cup and a half of the fire roasted tomatoes, 2 cups for quarter heat. And if you don't want any heat at all, you can still get a torta ahogada. Just don't tell anyone that you omitted the chili peppers, but just add the fire roasted tomatoes, the vinegar, and the other spices, but not the chilies. So what I'm going to do here is just pulse that for a moment, and then let it hang out. You can see our beans over here are warming up, so we're coming up to one of the last parts of the sandwich. I happened to convince my wife to make these really beautiful toasted sesame seed rolls, which I really appreciate because they're absolutely delicious. Traditionally, they're served on something like a bolillo roll, which is this kind of hard, slightly hollow roll. You can knock on it, and you can actually hear the hollowness in the roll. But really, for a torta ahogada, any sort of sandwich roll is gonna do. So what I'm gonna do is cut this in half. And then I'm gonna turn my beans off here. I'm gonna take those nice hot beans and put a pretty generous serving on my bottom sandwich roll here. You can see I'll get about 2 sandwiches out of this. All right, so then I just cover it up, gently cut it in half as all those beans ooze everywhere. Get my plate here. And then what I'm going to do is that sauce. We're going to take that sauce and drown the entire torta. But we're not done yet. We're going to finish this off with one last ingredient, which is a little bit of diced avocado. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice my knife into the avocado, and then I rotate my avocado around the knife. It's actually a little safer that way, and you can get a nicer cut on it. And then I just dunk my knife into the pit and twist. And then I'm going to take my my knife here, and I'm going to dice this avocado right in the skin, just like this. But I will warn you, do not press hard just until you feel the knife hit the bottom of that skin, because if you press harder, your avocado is not going to be vegan anymore. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can do it right on the cutting board. It's totally okay, but this is a really nice, easy way to dice up an avocado right onto each serving of torta. Now, of course, if you're going completely low fat, just omit the avocado from the recipe and you're still gonna have an awesome sandwich. But I love the creaminess of the avocado because it really makes a nice counterbalance to that very, very hot sauce that we just put on there. And you can sit there and let it soak into the sandwich bread if you want to. I don't have the patience for it because this looks amazing. That is just the right level of spiciness for me. It brings that whole sandwich to life. Actually, there's a back end heat on there that's gonna bring the sandwich to life in my mouth for a long, long time. And that is really good. I love the heartiness of the beans, just that warm, homey feeling of the bread, the vibrancy of the salsa, and of course that shot of creamy avocado to balance everything out. Absolutely one of my favorite sandwiches.